So I think I'm live. Hello. I hope there's somebody watching. Welcome to the very first Wellbeing Wednesday, my live Wednesday afternoon wellbeing check-in from Educate to Flourish. So I'll tell you a little bit about Educate to Flourish, just to get us started, and then a little bit about how to interact with me. In fact, I'll start with that so that if you do want to interact with me, you can do so straight away. So let me just get the right window up and then I can share that screen with you. So if you are watching on YouTube, which is the only way you can watch, you should see something that looks a little bit like this at the moment. And on the right hand side here, you can actually type your comments. So that's where I can see your questions. So do interact with me, do ask me questions, and I hope that we can interact and make this a really fun session in which we work together. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I'm Frederica Roberts. I'm the founder and managing director of Educate to Flourish, which is a community interest company. And I founded this so that we can provide support to schools, specifically to help children of all ages flourish. So that's Educate to Flourish. And I can, again, you can have a look at the website. I'll share that screen with you in just a moment. Here we go. So you should be able to see the screen there. If you want to find out a little bit about what we do, the website's still in development, but you can see that we provide wellbeing training both for children and for staff. A lot of work on action research. You can see some case studies there and some previous action research that we've done, as well as some training for parents and consultancy on positive education. So that's who we are and what we do. And my background is I am a former teacher, and I left many years ago. I left the teaching profession because of stress, so I really get it, and I have the hugest admiration for teachers who are doing the job day in, day out under very trying circumstances, and particularly right now under very trying circumstances. So I left that, did lots of other things, and then came to wellbeing through my personal experiences of overcoming challenges. We all have them, and discovered positive psychology. So I obtained a master's in applied positive psychology, and I'm now doing a doctorate in education where I'm hoping to research further a model of whole school positive education that I developed as part of my master's. Positive education, for those that don't know, is all about combining well-being and character education, character strengths into the whole picture of education alongside academic achievement, of course, so that you're educating the whole child. So that's me and Educate to Flourish. So what are Wellbeing Wednesdays all about? Well, I wanted to have an opportunity to just check in with people, say hello, give some tips every week. So I'm going to have one tip that I'm going to share with you, an activity that you or your children, whether you're a teacher or a parent, can do. And also any resources that I come across that are useful to teachers, to parents, to children. So if you see any resources that you'd like me to share in future Wellbeing Wednesdays, or if you've produced really useful resources that you'd like me to share, particularly stuff that's freely available, as I don't want to kind of commercially share stuff, but not in this forum anyway, then do let me know. Do get in touch with me at hello@educatetoflourish.org.uk or fred@educatetoflourish.org.uk. I shall pop that into the chat box. So contact me at fred@educatetoflourish.org.uk. So you should be able to see that in the chat box. So you can contact me there. And please do, I'd love to hear from you. You can also contact me via Twitter at EduFlourish. That's at EduFlourish. And again, I can just very quickly show you so you know you're on the right account when you look at Twitter. So I'll just quickly share the screen again. There you go. So that's my EduFlourish Twitter account there, at EduFlourish. And you can also contact me on my personal account, which is at Frederica Roberts. So this is me at Frederica_R, and Frederica Roberts, that's me. Okay, so do get in touch, and any questions you have for future episodes of the Wellbeing Wednesday, or any comments that you want to share. Let me just stop sharing the screen. Any comments you want to share, any questions, or any resources that you'd like to share that I can let people know about as we go along. So I'm always going to share some tips prepared in advance, some resources that I've come across or that you've let me know about, and then answer your live questions. So I'm hoping you'll have questions. I'll be here for up to half an hour, so UK time, which at the moment is British Summer Time, BST, from 4 till 4:30. And if we don't have any questions, then it might be a shorter live broadcast every time. So today, I was actually asked, as I announced this Wellbeing Wednesday, as I announced this yesterday on Twitter, somebody asked me a question and said, are there any resources specifically for Year 6 and Year 11 children, because they are going through big transitions, and of course those transitions have been hugely disruptive for them, which causes a lot of worry, a lot of concern for them, and a little bit of a feeling, I suppose, of disorientation for them. So as it happens, the activity I'd planned to do today with you taps right into that anyway. It's an activity, whilst it's really useful, and we'll probably talk about meditation and mindfulness in future episodes, it's really useful to be present in the moment for well-being. Sometimes it's also useful to take yourself away from the everyday reality, if that reality is a little bit scary and a little bit worrisome. And it can be really useful to take yourself, I'm just going to check if there's any questions coming through, just making sure everything's working. Yes, it is. So remember, if you've got any questions or comments, do let me know. It can be really useful sometimes to take yourself beyond that everyday, beyond any concerns that you might have, and envisage a really positive future for yourself. And whilst it can be used as a goal-setting activity, it's not meant as a goal-setting activity. There are far better activities for that actually help you to properly plan for how to achieve those goals. This activity that I'm going to do with you today is an activity that's aimed primarily from a positive psychology perspective. It's a well-being activity. It's aimed at improving mood, at increasing optimism. And at this point in time, for all of us, I think improving mood and particularly increasing optimism can be really useful. But if you are in Year 6 and you've been thinking about saying goodbye to your friends and transitioning into Year 7, and now you don't know whether you're going to go back into school before the summer holidays, whether you're going to get with your teachers, and also if you're in Year 11 and you've not had your perhaps Year 11 prom, you've not got to say goodbye to your friends, you've just had to leave, you're moving to a new school, perhaps for sixth form or to a college, or you might be starting an apprenticeship, or you don't even know what's happening with your grades, etc., then all of that is quite unsettling. And so doing this activity that takes you away from those everyday worries right here and now, and takes you into a flourishing, positive future and what that might look like, is a really positive activity to do to improve your optimism that that future might actually happen and that good things are still going to happen, even though things are a little bit rubbish right now. Let's be honest, they're not great, are they? But doing this activity can really put that, not necessarily into perspective, but just shelve that for a moment and allow you to envisage something better, which is really useful. I first discovered this activity when I started doing my master's in applied positive psychology. It was January 2017, and I was in Paris, which is not a bad place to be studying. I was doing the introduction to positive psychology module. It was a magical week anyway, because I made some amazing friendships that have lasted to date through that course and through that module in particular. The chemistry was fantastic between us all. And on the last day of that particular week, of that module, we did this activity. And I can honestly say that for me, that activity has been life-changing. The things that I discovered about what I wanted and about what my hopes were for the future and my dreams, and how, despite it not being a goal-setting activity, how some of those things have happened is incredible. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of what I wrote. Some of it is very deeply personal, so I've blurred it out, but I am going to share some of what I wrote down on there, some of which is still pretty personal, but I don't mind sharing. I'm quite public about some of these things, because it might be just useful to see what mine looked like, and how it's panned out for me. So hopefully you can see right now what I'm seeing on my screen, which is my best possible self that I did in January 2017. So you can see I set, I looked at what my best possible self would be, and I'll talk you through that in a moment, a little bit more about how to do that. But I set my time scale for 5 years from then. So what would my best possible self be in February 2022, in February 2022, and I broke that down into my family, friends and hobbies, into my finances, into my health, my education and my work and career. So from my work and career point of view, I said, and you write it in the present tense. So I wrote, I have achieved my MSc with distinction and I'm working towards a PhD. That was quite a bold vision to have at the very start in my very first module. And the thing is, I did do that. I did get a distinction. Yay! I actually got my distinction. I graduated in October last year. And I am working towards a doctorate in education, which is equivalent to a PhD. It's still a research degree. It still gives you the doctor title at the end. The only difference is it's aimed at practitioners rather than pure academic researchers. So it's very much steeped in practice. So at the moment, I'm in a taught component of that. I have an essay due at the beginning of June, but I will be starting my research, not the next academic year in September, but the academic year after that. So actually having that vision, even though having a vision doesn't necessarily lead to goal achievement, there's far more to it, but having that, and I've always got that displayed on my makeshift notice board, which are the cupboards above my desk right here, if you can still see a little image of me on screen, has really helped. And has actually led me to achieving that. From a health point of view, I was very, very overweight at that point, and I wanted to be a healthy weight and regularly swim and walk and not suffer with aches and pains like sciatica, and be really energetic and have great radiant skin. Well, you can comment on that. I'm not sure about the skin, but certainly I have since had weight loss surgery. I've lost an awful lot of weight, and I was exercising regularly before the coronavirus outbreak. And since then, actually, I go for a really good walk of about an hour every single day without fail. So I'm doing that as well, and I'm really happy with my health. And so you can see, and there was education there as well, which I'd written about doing a PhD, which was under work and career, but also enjoying learning, ongoing learning, which I certainly do. I really love learning on an ongoing basis. So I'll come back to you and stop sharing the screen now. So that's what it kind of can look like when you're doing the activity. And you might be interested in some of the research into this. So if you just bear with me, I'll just share a screen with you again. So I need to be an octopus with multiple hands. Okie dokie. So you can see here there's a piece of research, and I'm going to actually share the link in a moment in the chat box so that you can see it. Once I've stopped sharing the screen, I'll share the link. But this is the piece of research that you can look at. So let me just have a look at the chat box so I can type it in there for you. Here you go. So you can have a look at that research, and it's a researchgate.net link, so it should be accessible to everybody. And that piece of research looked at 30 best possible self studies. And what they found, I'm going to read verbatim, they found that the BPS, that's best possible self, the BPS can be recommended as one of a portfolio of interventions, and when used alone and repeated over time, it can result in a significant increase in well-being, which can persist over time. So significant increase in well-being, which can persist over time, which is really promising. And research has also found that it can be used as an intervention with students, adults, and children. So it really works across the age groups as well, and that participants in BPS experiments report that their motivation to complete and continue with the BPS activity is high. So really positive things there in terms of its impact on well-being, and in terms of how motivated people are to do it, and that it works across different ages as well. So if you want to read the piece of research, I have put the link into the chat, which should also show in the replay after the live is over. So here is how you do the best possible self activity. You can do it as a written activity in whichever form works for you. So I did it in a kind of mind map way. You could write it out more thoroughly. You could do bullet points, whatever works for you really, or you can draw it. If you're doing this with a younger child, for example, you can actually get them to draw their vision for their best possible self at some point in the future. You can do it if you were in a coaching setting or a counseling setting. You could talk through it, for example. So there are lots of ways of doing it. And the first thing is to pick a point in time in the future. And my recommendation would be that the younger the person that's doing it, the closer in the future you might want to be, because if you're really young, it might be tricky to project yourself, 5 or more years into the future. But really it depends on the person doing it. I chose 5 years when I did it back then in 2017. You can also repeat this over time. So, you could do a 6-month one and then you can repeat it again. There's no limit to the amount of times you can do this, and you don't have to have the first period of time elapse before you do it again. Do it whenever you feel you want to do it, because remember, this is not a goal-setting activity. It's a well-being activity. It's a positive psychology intervention aimed to improve mood and increase optimism. So you choose a point in time, and then you take some time to really visualize your life at that specific point in time in the future. But you visualize it based on a simple premise that everything has gone as well as it possibly could go. So everything has gone brilliantly, the way that you hoped it would go, as well as it could possibly go. And as you wanted it to go. You've done everything you wanted to achieve, everything's gone brilliantly for you. And think about this point in time in colour and detail and sounds and smells, and whichever way your brain wants to go there, make it as vivid in your mind as you possibly can. And think about it in the present tense, like you're actually there living it. You are at that point in the future and you're living it in the present. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you doing? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? Hello, Muriel. That's so nice to see you. I'm glad you're finding this a useful reminder. Muriel, who's watching live, is actually one of the wonderful people I mentioned that I met on that magical week in January 2017. Who's a very good friend of mine. And she does a brilliant podcast, by the way, talking about resources that we want to share. Muriel, if you want to put the link to your podcast, please do put it in the chat box. It's called The Share and Grow. If you speak German, it is a German podcast. It's fantastic. If you speak German, then tune into the Share and Grow podcast by Muriel Butker. So yes, envisage what is happening right now in your life if you are at that point in the future. What are you feeling, experiencing, doing, seeing, smelling, sensing, etc. And you can choose different aspects of your life. So for example, like I did, look at career, education, look at your health, look at your friendships, your family life, your relationships, etc. Or you can choose a specific aspect if that's what you want to focus on. And then in whichever way you want to record your answers, as we said, written, drawing, communication, verbally, record those answers and keep a record of them, because it's really useful to sometimes look back at that as well and see how that's actually panned out, and how some of those dreams might have changed and how some of those might actually have become reality as well. So that is the best possible self activity, and we are now 20 minutes in, so I will shortly be taking questions either about this activity or if there's anything else that you want to ask me about well-being, about positive psychology, about positive education and character strengths. I will do my best to answer it, and it might be that some of them will require more in-depth stuff that I can do in a future episode. So as a reminder, I'm here every Wednesday afternoon from 4 o'clock UK time, so that's British summer time at the moment, for up to half an hour, depending how many questions there are. And if you have any ideas for topics, any questions you'd like me to answer in future episodes, any resources you'd like me to share, then please let me know. You can contact me at fred@educatetoflourish.org.uk, and the address is in the chat box, or you can contact me via Twitter @eduflourish or @Frederica_R. So that's @eduflourish or @Frederica_R, and I will happily receive your messages there. And I wanted to share another resource that has been created by two fantastic educators as well. So let me just bring that up on the screen, and then I'll share the screen with you. Okay. So this is a weekly resource that compiles lots of other resources. So it's a great point for you to find great resources. And it's been compiled by Andrew Cowley, who is author of the Wellbeing Toolkit, fantastic book, and also happens to be the brilliant foreword writer for my up-and-coming book, for Flourishing's Sake, which was due to come out in June, but because of COVID-19 will now be out in August this year. So that's For Flourishing's Sake, and Andrew Cowley, author of the Wellbeing Toolkit, has written the foreword for that. So Andrew Cowley and the fantastic Kelly Hannigan, who is a brilliant well-being educator. They have put this resource together, so I'm going to share that with you. You should see that now. It's the Wellbeing Toolkit, the weekly Wellbeing Toolkit, and in it they signpost lots of resources. I'm going to put the link again into the chat box for you as well, so that you can find it. They post on Twitter about it every week when the new edition comes out as well, so you won't miss it. So if you follow Kelly Hannigan or Andrew Cowley on Twitter, then you'll always see the reminders for this. This is the weekly Wellbeing Toolkit, which you can see there. So I shall be back with you now. And so again, if you know of any great resources out there around well-being, positive education, positive psychology that might help children of all ages, parents, teachers and other educators, and of course the wider public out there, but because Educate to Flourish is specifically aimed at improving the flourishing of children and therefore also their parents and their educators, that's where I'm mainly aiming this. But any well-being resources that can help us at this particularly challenging time, please let me know via fred@educatetoflourish.org.uk or via Twitter @eduflourish or @Frederica_R. So that is really it from me at this point. If you do have any questions, do write them into the chat box right now. Otherwise, I will just remind you of my Twitter, how to get in touch with me. So here you go. I'll just share the screen again. Okay, so you can find me at EduFlourish on Twitter, and you can also find me at Frederica R. There you go. So at Frederica_R is my personal Twitter account, and EduFlourish is my Educate to Flourish one. And also, if you're interested in my podcast, every week, every Monday morning UK time at 7 o'clock, a new episode. It's a 5-minute podcast, absolutely free, available through all the major podcasting apps, as well as at forflourishingsake.com. You can also find that, and that has a Twitter account as well, so you can follow Flourishing Ed. So lots of Twitter accounts for you to follow. You certainly won't miss me on Twitter. If there are any questions, let me know now before we go. We've just got a couple of minutes left. So I'm going to just stop the sharing there. So I hope you found this useful. So today's activity was the best possible self. It's a positive psychology intervention. It's aimed not as a goal-setting activity, but it's a well-being activity aimed at increasing optimism and improving mood. And I hope that if you do it, it does do that for you. Do get in touch and let me know if you've done it, or if your children or students have done it and how they've got on with it, either via Twitter or via email. Do let me know. I always love to hear from you, and do let me know any topics, any questions for next week. It's been an absolute pleasure to go live with you today. That's it from me. Thank you very, very much for joining me. This has been Wellbeing Wednesday with Educate to Flourish and me, Frederica Roberts. You can find us on the hashtag as well on Twitter, hashtag Wellbeing Wednesday, hashtag WBWed. And I look forward to seeing you same time next week, UK time, BST 4 o'clock every Wednesday here on YouTube. Have a wonderful rest of the week. See you soon.